Hello. Better? I'll start from here then. Obviously, I shouldn't have sat down there. Hello, everyone. I'm William Mason, a mining analyst at S&P Global. And it's my pleasure to welcome you today to today's panel titled Copper at the Crossroads, Balancing Energy Transition Demand and Supply Realities. As we navigate the new energy landscape, copper emerges as a critical element in the transition to a sustainable future. Its applications are everywhere, embedded in renewable technologies, EVs, and energy infrastructure. We then pair this with traditional demand drivers. The importance of copper strengthens. Yet we must confront the challenges of supply constraints, environmental impacts, and geopolitics. Today we are privileged to have a panel of experts who will share their insights on how the copper industry can balance the burgeoning demand with supply realities. Joining us today, Juan Ignacio Díaz, President and CEO of the International Copper Association, Rohit Pathak, CEO of Copper Business at Hindalco, Prang, Vice President of Corporate Communications and External Affairs at Aurubis, and Jimena Latorre, the Minister of Energy, Mining and Environment for the government of Mendoza. So let's begin. Juan, I'm going to come. Hello. Hello. I'll just speak a bit louder. Firstly, can you just briefly explain the ICA and its role, and then we'll then crack on to a bit of demand.
Sure. Can you hear me well? Okay. So thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to tell you a little bit about what we do at ICA.
Can a technician please come? Yeah, the sound is not good here. Yeah.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. All right. Okay. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you a little bit about what we do at the International Copper Association. In a nutshell, it's an organization that was founded in the 60s to connect the world of the copper producers with the end users. Today, the International Copper Association has 35 members. We operate in 6 regions, and we represent about 50% of the world's copper demand. Okay? And we have a very clear mission. We promote, we protect, and we defend. We promote copper as the element of choice, and our members as what they really are, members that are responsible producers and modern producers. But we focus on the element of copper. That's what we promote. Copper as an element, as a material, as a metal. Okay? We protect, but what is it that we protect? We protect the markets of copper. And we do this through science and regulations. So our people in the ICA, we have many people that have PhDs, are experts on geology, on chemistry, on physics, on environmental issues. So what we do is that we produce evidence, and it's that with that evidence is that we go and try to influence positively in the different markets around the world with regulators and decision makers. So it's not a lobby institution. It is a science-based institution that influences and opens the markets of copper around the world to make sure that the copper that is being produced in Chile, in India, or elsewhere can enter the different markets. And we defend and sustain the demand of copper. That's the third thing that we do in those places in which copper is growing the most.
Juan, we're going to kind of stick with you and kind of go a bit more into copper demand. We've seen every agency, every research house, they've kind of touted copper to be in deficit. So copper playing a critical role across these sectors. Where do you see demand growing the fastest, and in which applications and regions do you see the greatest long-term opportunities?
Okay, so if we start from the very top, why is the copper industry growing so fast? We need to go to the megatrends. So urbanization, electrification, digitalization, and the clean energy transition are bringing huge challenges to society. And those challenges must be addressed with technologies and with innovation. And those technologies and innovation have one thing in common, which is copper. So this is the reason why the copper is so necessary, because of these megatrends. Just imagine digitalization and the amount of data centers that are being built, the amount of energy that they need, and the amount of copper is massive. Or the clean energy transition and the necessity to implement renewable energies, or urbanization and electrification, and the amounts of cities and larger cities that are being built, that they need more generation, transmission, distribution, powers, transformer, cables, and buildings, and that requires a massive amount of copper. So that all comes from the megatrends. Now, when we go to the regions where copper is growing the most, it is China, India, the US, Europe, Mexico, Korea, and Japan. 7 regions. Those 7 regions are where copper is mostly used. They're big manufacturing regions. And within those 7 regions, we have 6 applications for thermal and for electrical and 2 thermal. So motors, cables, transformers, electrical vehicles, and then we have air conditioning, and we have heat pumps. Within those 6 applications and those 7 regions, we can say that we have 70% of the world's copper demand.
So touching on, you kind of talked about India there. I saw a video of you, Rohit, on LinkedIn, kind of calling on it's India's time now. And I was just wondering, can you kind of elaborate further on that story, on what you're expecting from India?
Sure. So, like Juan said, India is probably one of the fastest growing demand centers for copper. We are growing at about 8 to 10% every year. Today, India is amongst the top 5 copper consuming regions. By 2035, close to about 4 million tons of copper, 4 to 5 million tons of copper demand will make India by far the second largest copper consuming region. Why this growth is happening? I think 3-4 fundamental reasons. One, over the last 8 to 10 years, the entire country has been connected to the national grid. So India has got the largest single national grid, which is now connected every village across the nation to the central grid. And with that connection, obviously the uses of electricity are increasing. Second, there is a huge, almost 300 million people have come up from poverty into the middle income zone, and hence the consumption patterns are increasing. So I think the broad themes remain similar to what Juan said. I think there's massive urbanization that is happening. In the next 10 to 15 years, India will, or 3/4 of India will get built. So it's a massive amount of infrastructure build that is going to happen in terms of housing, in terms of commercial spaces, factories, which is driving the demand. Second, big area is around the renewables. So India is investing big time into renewables. So in the next 5 years, about 300 gigawatts of renewable power is going to be built, which is going to take a lot of copper. Third, air conditioning. I think, Indian air conditioning market is really going crazy. India is hot, so, and with the increased incomes, air conditioning is a very, very hot market. And India is also becoming a hub for exports to other regions like Europe and Middle East. So that's the third big area. Fourth, I think early days, but with the EV cycle picking up, I think that's again an area which will see a fair amount of growth, though the base may still be small. Largest part of the demand will remain housing, wires and cables, which is where we are seeing very rapid growth, not just for consumption in India, but also for exports. The last one, which I think is probably also as relevant, is consumer electronics. So India typically used to import most of these consumer electronics historically. Now with the push on Make in India over the last several years, a lot of base has got created for manufacturing consumer electronics in India, for India, as well as now for exports. So that's the fifth area which I see a big ticker. So I see from about 1.7 million tons of copper demand today, India is going to get to about 4 to 5 million tons by 2035, which will make it the second largest.
So we've painted quite a strong demand picture picture there, and already we kind of see this year deficits in the copper market kind of happening. So we're kind of going to look at supply now and what's happening in the response to this demand. So Torre, what are the key project hurdles facing copper supply at the moment?
I think that there are, you need to look at the different regions. Yeah? If you look, for example, at Europe is totally blocked by regulations. So the amount of regulations and the in-depth regulation the EU would like to do is just impossible to manage these days, up to the point that some of the objectives are just technically not achievable, and to a point where really the demand to reduce CO2 to absolutely zero has come to a step where investment in expansion in critical materials is very difficult. Then you have, of course, very high energy costs in Europe, and you have the problem of obligations to report, which makes it even more costly for companies to build up and to expand. On the plus side, I have to say, Europe has very great instruments for funding. There are good instruments for receiving loans, and there are good instruments for even receiving really government funds. So this makes it, on the other side, very attractive. On plus, you have a good workforce. When you look at other parts of the region, Aurubis is the largest copper producer outside China. We process about 2 million tons of concentrates every year and about 1 million ton of copper scrap. So we have just opened this year our new recycling factory in the US. It's actually the third copper smelter in the US. And in the US, you have the big advantage, you get very quickly your license, you have cheap energy, you get very good support in managing regulations. The issue in the US is it's very capital intensive, so you need funding. Loans in the US are not so attractive. You need, if you want to expand stronger and support copper supply, you need government funding and a good government policy. We are looking at this right now to expand stronger in the US, and we believe that there is a strong market. The US has a deficit, I think it was mentioned here several times, about 1 million tons of copper. It will increase strongly in the next year, so it's an attractive market with attractive conditions. What is missing is funding.
So I think then kind of on the back of that, we're going to take a look at kind of the government side, and we've mentioned you mentioned their permitting and kind of those hurdles that need to be faced. So Jimena, what has been adopted in Mendoza to kind of promote a more efficient permitting process?
Well, hello, thank you for the invitation. In Mendoza, work in the promote to attract, invest, to develop the mining and especially the copper. We have important geological potential. We are neighbors with Chile, and we have same potential, but we need work in promote the invest, and for that we in Mendoza has changed for the law for greater efficiency and less bureaucracy. You listen me? Mm-hmm. And less bureaucracy in that is an important issue, the permitting. And for example, in the south of Mendoza, we created a mining zone. The name is Distrito Minero Malargüe, and the district has 18,000 square kilometers with more than 150 projects to develop the exploration in the south of Mendoza, with focus in copper. And in the north of Mendoza, in the northwest of Mendoza, near Chile, we have maybe the first project to produce copper in Argentina. It's PSG, copper, Mendocinian copper, and it's a project, little or medium project with 14,000 tons years, and many facilities to produce copper in the short terms, in 2 years maybe.
Perfect. And we've kind of touched on the kind of supply side at the mine and the development hurdles we're facing there. I think now kind of move a bit further down, like the kind of end users. Juan, what are the biggest challenges copper end users are facing?
Okay. Well, first I want to say that Argentina is doing an amazing job at a federal level, and they have big challenges when it comes to permitting at the local level. So I'm glad that you're pro-copper there. When it comes to the challenges of the end users, today we're transitioning from a fossil fuel economy to a material society, so a material economy in which today the real competition is between materials. So the end users, the fabricators, the manufacturers, the car makers, the cable makers, they need to make a decision. The decision, and this is the challenge, with which material will I build my technologies? And price is not all. Price is a big component of your decision, but in this decision-making process, when I need to fabricate, when I need to manufacture a car, I need to take into consideration many aspects. One of them is circularity, right? I want to build my technology with something that is recyclable, that is, right, circular. Second, availability. I want to build with something that is available. So when I get to choose my material, I want something that is available not only today, but also in the future. Because you plan a factory for 10, 15, or 20 years. You don't plan a factory for the next year. Third, I want a product, I want a material that is responsibly produced. And I'm not only meaning responsibly produced from the point of view of the energy or the access to water, but also about community engagement, about how labor laws and human rights, and there's a lot of components when you get to a responsibly produced material. And then a low emission material. I want a material that is low in carbon emission. Scope 1, 2, and 3 are really relevant for this decision-making process. And then you want an efficient material. And to add to all of these components, you got geopolitics, you got tariffs, and you got export controls. So sometimes you get, okay, I have a circular material, is responsibly produced, and it is low in emissions, and it complies with everything, and it's a reasonable price. But you have export controls, and you have tariffs. And so there's, what is the challenge here is that for at least copper and the end user is that copper is not alone. Copper competes, and it needs to comply with these requirements. And in this, and if you allow me, copper is unmatchable when it comes to these components, okay? Maybe not in the price, I get it. But in the rest, copper is 100% recyclable. Copper can be used over and over again without losing its properties. Copper is the conductor in chief. It's a good conductor, electrical conductor, thermal conductor. It's anti-corrosive. It's antimicrobial. It's safe and it's durable. And it is so durable that more than 60% of the copper ever produced in history, it is still in use today in different applications and infrastructures. So it's not crazy to think that many of these computers and this light and this wiring contain copper that was produced 500 years ago. And 40% of the copper demand in a year come from recycled copper. That's the beauty of copper. So it is unmatchable in many aspects, but we still compete because we're not alone.
I think kind of moving on to that, Torre, you alluded to secondary smelter capacity in the US, kind of Aurubis Richmond producing its first copper a couple of weeks ago. Can you just kind of delve in a bit more to the secondary smelter capacity in the US, what you kind of see happening there?
Yeah, the US is actually a very attractive market when it comes to secondary copper processing or material processing, because we are the first facility of its kind in the US. So far, the US has always exported the copper scrap and then metal scrap, mainly to China. Now, recently, the US administration introduced quotas for copper scrap and scrap export to China, and announced that about 25% of the material should be processed in the country. So for us, it's a very good move. Yeah, regulations, at least, is sometimes also good for companies. We are now having a capacity of about 180,000 tons of input material, which relates into about 70 to 80,000 tons of output material. And our factory is modular, so we could expand it. Now, most important is that we look further into the value chain in the US, so that we can, the blister copper we produce, also further process into copper cathodes, and this is something which is so far limited in the US. So this is why we believe that the recycling market in the US is a very attractive one, a very good one. We are a pioneer here in this segment, and it will also help the US government to fulfill their political objectives, mainly to reduce dependency on copper imports.
And I'll just add to this. So we are also building the first such center in India, inspired by Aurubis. And I think for us the thinking was 2-3 things. One, it's not just that copper is going to be available in form of scrap, but I think for us it's also a twin benefit of today it is processed in many parts in a very crude manner, and that's not environmentally sustainable. So I think for us it's also a lens of saying by doing it in the right responsible way, you can do environmentally good. And second, because most of the applications of copper are in electrical applications which require very high purity, it also enables the proper secondary smelting, also enables high quality copper to be produced, which can then go into electrical applications, which is the other challenge in electricity. The fires that happen typically, a lot of them emanate from poor quality copper used in end products. So I think for us it's a twin objective of both environmental benefits as well as the quality of copper that can be produced by using this copper.
Rohit, I want to kind of stick with you for now, kind of focusing on the smelting and refining side. We've kind of seen benchmark TCs, but yes, treatment charges become negative. Can you kind of give us any insights into kind of what smelters are doing to combat that when you kind of see it changing for you?
Sure. So look, commodity businesses are always a cost curve game, right? So I think finally as a smelter you have to say, are you in the first quartile or second quartile at the worst in the curve, and then you are fine, because someone else will then go down before you, and by that time the market will balance. For us, we are focusing on 3 types of initiatives. One is we are investing a lot on digital and analytics to improve our process and process efficiency to get our costs down. So there's a huge investment going on in that space. The second is we are working with a lot of partners to create value from the waste products. I heard the earlier panel talking about what do you do with waste. So today we have got to a level where we have reduced our waste by 95%. Everything that we, whether it's the slag, whether it's the sludge, whether it's the gypsum, we have worked with industries around our plants to be able to use it economically and hence create some value for us. It may not be huge value, but it's creating value. So our new smelter that we are building is a zero waste to landfill and a zero waste, zero liquid discharge plant that we're creating. So I think that's the second. So how do we create more value from the waste products and make it economical? Third, we are building our capability to handle a lot more complex concentrates, right? Because while yes, concentrates are tight, the market for tougher concentrates are still a little more open. I think Aurubis is probably one of the better ones who's been working on this for a long time, but we are also working quite actively to be able to handle tough concentrates, which give you slightly better returns from a TCRC perspective. So I think these are three things that we are working on. And hopefully, I think the fourth area, which is slightly different, is we are also investing behind quality, so that we work with our end consumers, where we get live data from their plants on how our coils are running, and basis that we are able to customize what we give to at least the big customers, and through that charge a little higher premium than what others will get. So for us, that premiumization through better quality and service is the fourth element of what we are working on.
And we've kind of mentioned technological innovation. There was kind of panels before that have said that maybe it's the adoption within the mining industry is maybe a bit slower than tech, and the amount that goes into R&D is 0.5% was quoted earlier of the revenue. And I kind of just want to touch with you, Jimena, what role can the government play in helping mining companies in research and development?
Well, Mendoza government work with the private sector in this issue. Special in Plan Pilares is the name, with the plan to develop the mining in Mendoza for the 30 or 50 years. And in this plan, Mendoza study and planning the different programs to reduce the gaps and promote the activity in the province. This is one line, and other line is with the local company, local public company. The name is Impulsa Mendoza. And this company works in promoting the knowledge with the different sector, with the education sector, with the schools, and with the owners or proprietary of the project too. Is very important in one province that the last 50 years has not been activity in mining. Work together with the private sector in develop the capacity and facility to invest and attract invest of the market sector and other places. And for the environmental topics, it's very important the invest in technology, in controls of the mining and environmental authority, and the government of Mendoza invest in the new technology to increase the capacity in the control sector.
And kind of sticking with the government theme and copper companies with the ICA members, Juan, how are kind of different countries prioritizing copper in the energy transition?
Well, different approaches, different countries, but they have something in common, that they believe that copper is essential, not only important, it is essential to national security and manufacturing world. So the US recently designated copper as a critical mineral, not only a critical material, which makes a huge difference, unlocking benefits, financial benefits, federal benefits, and also faster permitting. We're about to see, but that's the intention. India has done the same. It is a critical mineral in India, and well, Rohit can explain a little bit more what it means, but it's a clear recognition. Then the European Union has appointed copper as a critical raw material, and then you have countries like China that didn't designate copper as a critical mineral. They didn't say it, but they embedded it into the norms, into the form, into the industrial policy. You open that policy, and the recommendation is copper. So they don't say it, but they act on it in their norms. So every country has a different approach, and the commonality of them is that copper is being recognized as essential.
I think in copper, the biggest challenge remains on what will get the mining companies to invest and announce more projects, because that's where I think a lot of the fear of not enough copper being available is coming from. Otherwise, I think if you look at from a demand side and the need side, I think there's unanimous view that more and more copper will be required for all the things that we're talking about. For example, AI, if you look at AI, the data centers and the cooling of those data centers will require so much of copper that currently there is no other substitute for that. And hence, we need to figure out how do we create more copper. And while secondary industry can create and bridge some of that gap, the primary mining investments have to really kick in to be able to fuel or satiate the appetite of copper that is required.
Fair enough. So we've kind of painted quite a picture here of burgeoning demand, kind of supply realities, a nice government helping on the way, kind of the collaboration between miners, government, and kind of local communities. So kind of just as kind of closing statements, I'd like to kind of ask each one of you, what key action would you like to see next year or in the future by copper mining companies? We'll start with you, Juan.
Okay, speed in permitting. I'm sorry that I look at you,
okay.
But we need speed, and it's not in Argentina, it's everywhere. The world will need to meet the demand of copper. The society is asking us to deliver more copper. It's not us that we want to just produce more copper for the sake of money. It's that the world needs to be decarbonized, and so it'll double. Today we produce 26 million tons. It'll reach 50 in a few years. Where are we going to get that copper from? We need one Escondida mine, the largest copper mine in the world, one Escondida mine a year in order to meet the demand. And I honestly don't know where we're going to get that copper from if we're taking 17 or 25 years to get a greenfield project to be online. We have 53 green projects in copper. We have recycling, thank God. It is more mining and more recycling, one of the biggest challenges that we have. That's one thing that I wanted to say. The second, as a comment, is that we need to look for more public and private partnerships. I think they're very good, and they're very good examples of that being useful, because it's a perfect combination of the government contributing with the regulatory framework and the legitimacy of the state, with the private sector that can contribute with the financing, with the technology, and with the unmatchable capability of execution. When those worlds are combined together, you can do great things when it comes to the copper world. And last but not least, be proud of what we do. We need to be much prouder. Yes, we are miners, and we need to say it. I work for the mining industry, and I feel proud of it because I know that we're doing a good for the world, right? We need to feel proud of what we do because it is truly more than an extractive industry, it's a transformative industry. We enable energy transition, we enable digitalization, we enable electrical cars, we enable the growth of society. And not only we're doing good in the countries in which we're producing copper, we're not only doing good to the communities and to their families and providing jobs and paying billions of taxes to governments that uses it to for the well-being of the people, but also on the side of the end users. We're transforming the world. So I at least feel very proud of the industry that I work, and that we need to say it out loud. If you're a provider of the copper industry, if you're a supplier of the copper industry, well, be proud of that, right? Don't hide it. We have our challenges, but we're cleaner than ever before in history. And to be honest, my friend, I don't know which other industry have invested more to be more sustainable than the copper industry around the world. I don't know it. So if anyone has an idea, let me know.
Do you need me to repeat the question, Torre?
What to add, on this emotional speech, difficult, So, but no, I agree, speed. But I also would like, what you said, be proud of it, is true, communicate more. And this means also for me inclusion of the communities. I think this will be very important, so that not, in 10, 15 years' time, we see something like we've seen in Panama. So we need inclusion of the communities to get acceptance also from the mines. But to only put it on the mines is a little bit unfair. I think now here governments are asked to really support with very fast permissions, reduced regulations, and then I believe the mines, they are as hot as we are on copper and getting copper out. So I believe that these things would really help to get a boost to the mining situation.
Perfect. And Jimena, a statement from you?
Well, first, I listen your message. So your message is very important for us to work with the private sector, but it's very important for us to work speed, because I know that we need other escondidas more, and especially in Mendoza, we need work in the facilities and the permitting and accelerate these issues, this topic. I said you about Distrito Malargüe Minero is the exploration zone, and this exploration zone we created 2 years ago, and the last year we approved 38 projects in 5 months to develop the exploration. And nowadays we approved 27 more, and in the next week the local congress will be approved this permitting, and this place has 150 projects, but Argentina has changed the May in the last 2 years, and it's very important that tools to accelerate, to increase the invest in Argentina and develop the industry of copper, in special copper in Mendoza and in the Andean Bridge reach. And well, we work in the Andean Bridge is a program to attract, invest and finance to the region, not only for Argentina or for Mendoza, for Chile and for Peru also, and work in Argentina in attract, invest with the new regime. RIGI is a regime to guarantee the stability and security for the international investment. And in Mendoza in special, we work in accelerate and in increase the facility to approve the permitting with more agility processes.
Nice.
Perfect. So kind of just wrapping up. Sorry, Rohit, we don't have time to come to you. But we've said there kind of speed in permitting, your public-private partnerships, and the kind of inclusion of communities, but most of all, kind of be proud in the mining industry. So thank you all for listening.
But Bill, I'll just say, I think probably the best thing we can do for copper is, look, you're sitting in this room, everything that is making this room alive, whether it's the lights, the air conditioning, the audio, all of it runs on copper. And I think it's high time we bring the excitement back to copper. We all talk about AI and digital and X, Y, and Z, but I think all of them are powered by copper. And unless we bring the pride back into saying, look, these basic materials are critical for whatever you are dreaming of, we are missing the larger picture here. So I think, to me, the biggest takeaway is we need to change the narrative to talk about why these basic materials are going to be critical and why all of us need to invest behind it to ensure that it is there for all the development that humanity is talking about.
There you go. Thank you for listening.